All right. Who wants some? Who's next? Huh? How about it? Who wants some? Huh? Who wants to have a little? You.
Hi. How you doing? Welcome to another edition of Catharsis here on the Full Circle Radio Network. I am your host on this program, the producer here at Full Circle, Joseph J. Alexander. And let me just say that getting this episode prepared and ready has been a task in and of itself. I have been trying to put this out for at least a week. But you see, things just kind of keep falling into place like tumblers in a lock, and I needed to let things play out before actually hitting that good old record button. Because I'm kind of glad that I did, because I ended up not jumping the gun on a few things. I mean, granted, the predictions that I gave off air came true, so it's not like there would have been egg on my face. But hey, here we are. So for those of you wondering, this is going to be another edition in the Bristol, Connecticut saga. So if locality of that area is not your cup of tea, have fun. New episode of White Heat records the end of this week. New episode of Wildcard Cinema airs the next week. New episode of Cinematic Jackass will be next week sometime too. In the meantime, what do we want to talk about? Well, you see, I had basically left well enough alone after the last episode covering this. I didn't make too many waves. Except for the usual, actually speaking out when stuff needed to be spoken about. But apparently that's not good enough for some people. Apparently some people want to poke the beast. Sometimes you just don't learn, do you? And I know you're watching this, because I know I live rent-free in your fucking heads. I'm talking about you, Daryl, and you, Kara, and you, Jen Van, and especially you, Jeff. So for those of you interested, mayoral elections and the city council elections are heating up here in the city of Bristol, Connecticut. Just a few short days ago, there was the first mayoral debate hosted by WTIC AM 1080. It took place at the Parkside Cafe at 8 o'clock in the morning. And let's just roll that back. Yes, it was recorded so you could listen to it live or listen to it at a later broadcast. However, the first forum was hosted at a restaurant that openly supports and donates to Fuck Buckles campaign, and is hosted by the most conservative radio station in the state, where the host is good friends with the mayor. Am I saying this was an unfair playing field? No, not at all. I'm just saying that's going to come back to haunt them later with the excuses that they are putting forth as we go along with this episode. Now, what I have done is I have clipped some of these segments of the debate so we can go through them and I can tell you what's what. Because as it was said by the host of the debate, I can't fact check these things in real time, which is bullshit because we live in a day and age where you've got a fucking computer in your hand and you can literally fucking Gemini that shit, or Chat GPT shit. But no, we're going to just let lies. There we go. So let's see what we have first on the agenda here.
Jeff, why do you want and why do you think you deserve a third term?
Well, I think the answer is pretty simple. I walked from City Hall to this venue today, and I saw the revitalization of our city. As I talked about in my opening statements, we have had 15 administrations since we started urban renewal 61 years ago, and the whole of the heart of our city is what our economic problem is right now. Now, there's greater economic problems throughout the whole state of Connecticut, but Bristol is positioned very well in the future to solve some of those economic problems that we have. We're going to talk about taxes later, but that growth is going to allow us to get our way out of that. And to be very honest, there's been none of that growth for 15 administrations before this. I am literally an acre and a half away from selling the last parcel that we own in the Center Square Mall area. And that was my main focus coming in. I got another 2 years to finish it. I actually wish I finished it in the 4 years, but what we've gotten accomplished to this point is pretty dramatic.
Okay, so I'll take this to Ellen. Thank you much for that, because it's a perfect segue. And I'll read it just as I wrote it, Ellen. How responsible do you feel about the progress downtown?
Well, at first, I think it's disingenuous to disregard 61 years of effort. I wrote my senior thesis on downtown. We can talk about that all day. But the fact of the matter is that changing demographics affected Bristol more than anything. They started with good intentions, but at the end of the day, Mayor Kuchar acquired the mall. Mayor Ward had to deal with the remediation. There was all kinds of issues that happened, and then we started development. So everybody had a piece of it. So I just, the 61 years is kind of annoying. I'd also like to point out that on Monday, September 8th, City seeks developer for last Center Mall parcel, which is 4 years from the day somebody took office. So I guess my point is it takes time. We took 4 years, including a COVID management period where things slowed down, in order to put together the thoughtful plan that you see behind us. We did the infrastructure because we knew it would be more attractive to the developers if everything was already in the ground. I talked to local developers and said, why didn't the Renaissance project work? They gave great advice, and that's what we decided to do. We decided to do the mix of business and residential so that people would always be here. And then we did the infrastructure, including planning for the parking garages and everything that's under Hope Street.
Mr. Mayor?
Well, there's a lot I can say, and the first thing I want to talk about is that there is a young vibe in the city. So in the last 4 years, we've seen 20 to 39-year-olds become the fastest growing population, as well as the largest segment of the population. Why are they here? Because instead of planning and going through theses and all kinds of plans, we got it done. The fact is that when I took office, I moved out of City Hall. I gave the previous mayor full credit for getting the City Hall project done, up and running, 90% design when I got in there. And we let it happen, and we got it under budget and on time. When I went back into City Hall, I saw an empty lot across the street. There's no denying that the four projects, the four shovels that went in the ground, happened between 2022 and 2025, where we are now. I have 1.5 acres left to go. I think it's obvious for people to see that things got done. And I'm sorry if I'm offending people by talking about the history, but I do that purposely because a 2-year term is a tough time for mayors to get things done. And we got it done. I'm asking for 2 more years to finish the job.
Last word.
Revisionist history is still part of history.
Exactly. Ellen Zappo Sasu said it best in that last statement. So let's talk about this 61 years nonsense, shall we? So, number one, you have a mayor talking about 61 years of blah, 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 this and that. He wasn't alive back when he started, this bullshit that he's talking about. So the problem is yeah, in that 61 years, there was a lot of change downtown in Bristol. It was before my time, so I can only go off of, old photos and what I see old timers talk about. But North Main Street was completely rerouted. The Pequabic River was put into a cistern and there was streets put over it. I know that for a fact because where I grew up in Bristol was one of the last spots where you could still see the Pequabic before it started going under the streets all the way until it hits the boulevard, basically. But that was done so that the downtown could be built up and that Center Mall could be built. Bristol used to have a mall. People used to go to that fucking mall. That mall was a destination because not many cities had malls, and Bristol was one of the earlier ones. Granted, Center Mall did not keep up with the trends of places like West Farms and Meriden Square and all that. It wasn't big enough. And eventually, yes, that mall did die. I remember living in Bristol in 2000 and going into the mall, and literally one of the anchor stores was an Ocean State job lot. The other anchor store was empty. There was an arcade. There was a guy selling little jewelry bits in a middle kiosk. There was the newsstand, there was the Chinese buffet, and the pizza place, and that was about it. There wasn't much in there. And eventually, yeah, the mall got demolished. And yes, there was an empty piece of land. What the mayor, the current mayor, fails to mention is that all those plots of land, except for the one that got sold, were sold under the previous administration, not by him. Just because the ground broke when he was in office doesn't mean he had any fucking thing to do with that land getting sold. But you know what he does have to do with? That last 1.5 acre parcel that he's still saying, oh, we're going to sell it. Oh, we're going to sell it. Oh, we're going to sell it. It's been 4 fucking years and he hasn't been able to sell it. One plot left. He's all, we have one plot left. That's the only fucking plot that you've had to sell. And you haven't been able to fucking do it. That attests to what you've been doing, not the other shit that's been built, which, by the way, this is not me kissing ass on either party, because what has been built downtown, I think, is a fucking monstrosity. I think those buildings look fucking terrible, and I think they are way overpriced for the residencies that they're selling. They're 1-bedroom apartments for over $2,000 a month. That is not fucking affordable. I have a 2-bedroom house and my mortgage is far less than that. So I'm just saying. Yes, downtown, there's renewal, there's buildings up. Fuckbuckle had nothing to do with those buildings being built. He had to do with doing the photo ops with the shovels after the land had already been sold a year before he came into fucking office. So, revisionist history is still history, just as Ellen said. So let's keep going, shall we?
SB reported, Jeff, 27% increase in property taxes over 4 years. Is this accurate? And if so, what are you going to do to ease the burden for Bristol homeowners?
Yeah, I think it is accurate. Unfortunately, the state of Connecticut has a property tax problem, so much so that our comptroller, Sean Scanlon, has put together a task force, he's a Democrat, by the way, to relieve property taxes across the state. There's a lot of issues that go behind this, and somebody texted me this morning and just said, hey, I hope everybody knows the mayor's not the one that makes this decision. I see a lot of Board of Finance members in here as well, too. We have a strong Board of Finance. We're keeping up with the same types of inflationary pressures that you all are. Electric costs, gas costs, things of that sort. And it's a very difficult situation for everybody. So taxes clearly did go up. There are some, and we had a 35% increase in home values in the city of Bristol. While if you're not selling your home, I know you know that's not a big deal, and it might increase your taxes. But this burden shift over to homeowners is happening all over the place. In the city of Bristol, we also have an issue. We have overspending on the Board of Education, and this is just a fact. Over the last 2 years, the Board of Education reported a $1.8 million potential deficit in May when we set our budget, and they came in at a $3.4 million deficit. This year, they came in at a $5.9 million deficit, and that's on top of giving them $14.5 million new dollars in my administration to operate. And special education costs are a big part of this, not coming down from the state mandates aside. We have a problem that we can fix.
We'll get to some specific Board of Education questions in a little bit, but your chance to respond.
So I'm going to, again, refresh everybody's memory from Mr. Caggiano's 2021 campaign brochure, which says Bristol has a spending problem. And he definitely is true on that, because in the last 4 years, the Bristol Board of Ed trending budget increase has been 12% over 4 years for a total additional revenue into their budget of $15,411. But on the city side grew 20%. Spending problem, $17,652,945, almost $18 million in additional spending on the city side. So, back to the brochure of 21. Increased spending during the worst economic crisis of our lifetime, my administration. Excessive department head pay increases. Didn't change any of them. Can you imagine the tax increase if this continues? And I think we see that today.
I would love to respond to that because my numbers are a little bit different, and I went back, and it gets very difficult because budget years don't match actual years. So the last budget that the former administration put together was the 22 budget year. I was already elected, remember. We look at the 4 years of education. The Democrat in power gave $11.3 million to our Board of Ed, and I think percentage is important here. That's 2.47% increase. Now, over the last 4 years, so this is a nice apples-to-apples comparison, we've given $14.2 million to the Board of Education, which is a 2.78% increase. I guess my question back to the mayor is, they complain about taxes going up, and they have these signs all over town that say taxes are going up, but 2 Democrats voted against the budget this year because they wanted more money for the Board of Education. How is that not going to raise taxes?
So we'll pause here, and we'll also say for everyone listening at home and listening here, I can't fact check data in real time, so I don't know what data is true and what's not true. So that's something you just have to keep in mind. I try to fact check when I can, but I don't have the resources to do that in real time. The 2 questions I have, one is for each of you on this topic, since we are rolling a little bit. One is, Ms. Sapo-Sasu, what would you have done given the same situation had you been mayor? Now, it's a big question, and you only have a certain amount of time to answer it. But like, if you had the same conditions that Mayor Caggiano had over the 4 years, would you have done differently? And is it specifically related maybe to taxing and spending?
So we obviously knew that managing taxes had 2 pieces to it. And what we did is we leveraged scarce and dwindling resources. We also maximized retirements and attrition and eliminated, I think the number was 15 positions out of the city, but we ended up adding 3 back in critical places because we knew that maintaining cutting was as important as funding programs. We also filled in gaps with social service safety net with a lot of robust nonprofit partnerships. We identified key areas that need to be boosted. We merged departments together. We eliminated some duplication. So all of that is a constant across the line. But I would like to get back to some of the Bristol school deficit issues with the Board of Education, if that's possible.
Well, I would like to do that, but I was specifically interested if you had the same sort of scenario if you had continued to serve, how would you have handled some of the situations? And I'll just put a pause in it because you gave an answer there. To the mayor, I would say some municipalities changed the mill rate so property taxes did not go up. Why didn't you do that?
We actually did do that. So the second budget that I did, we took the mill rate from 38 down to 30.35 at that time. This was before the Board of Education overspending, and that reduced taxes for many people. But again, this burden shift on the home values might have created some differences there. It was a $1.4 billion I'll call it a fake grand list growth. And there are towns and cities all over the state of Connecticut that are seeing this. There's nothing that either of us as mayor could have done about that. But what I will go back to, because I think it's an important point, is the 61 years of lack of development downtown made all the commercial properties across the state that were losing value have a greater impact on our homeowners and our residents. Had we had even one commercial project break ground in those 4 years, we had great economic times before COVID, and 3 years of her administration was pre-COVID, that would have helped those taxpayers. So, listen, my solution long-term to the original question was we need to continue development in downtown to spread these taxes out.
So, once again, it falls back on the Board of Education. If you recall, when I started talking about the problems with this city and the mayor and how he blames the Board of Education for everything, that was the first installment of Catharsis dealing with Bristol, Connecticut. Link to the whole playlist at the end of this video. It's been proven time and time again, and you'll hear it from other people with other video clips that I have here, that the Board of Education is vastly underfunded and that they weren't giving enough funding to the Board of Education. They weren't meeting state mandates. But he wants to try to place the blame somewhere else. That's all he knows how to do, is blame and deflect. It is a typical current GOP strategy. You see it all over on the fucking news. You see it with a good percentage, and I'm not saying all Republicans, because I still do believe that there's still a few Republicans out there that still have a fucking brain. But this is the talking point of blame and deflect. Blame and deflect, blame and deflect. This is all they do. And the problem is you can only do that so often before people see all the holes in your story. Quick little bit here. He wants to talk about the Board of Ed and this, that. Part of the Board of Ed spending had to do with Edgewood Pre-K Elementary School. It's not too far from my house. There was a leaky roof that needed to be fixed. There were funds allocated for that patch. They dragged ass on the project. What happened? The roof fucking collapsed. They had to start putting all the pre-K kids in these satellite little spots in the senior center and other places. But the thing is, Edgewood, as a pre-K academy, is designed to also help with special education pre-K students that get bussed in from out of town. These families pay tuition. That tuition goes to the city. He keeps blaming the Board of Ed, and he keeps talking about this magical deficit number of this money that we gave them. He didn't give it to them. It was sitting in an escrow fund, and it was for the repair of Edgewood. And there was a Board of Ed meeting that happened a couple of weeks ago. I sat here on Zoom watching it. I recorded the whole thing. I'm not going to play anything of it from you because I can give you the Reader's Digest version, because there was a lot of stalling in it after everything was presented. Basically, there was a plan put forward saying, here's how much it would cost us to patch it, and the city would still be liable for X amount. However, if we choose to completely redo the roof, we get X, Y, and Z funding from the federal government and the state, and it will cover 99.2% of the costs. So the city is only on the hook for peanuts. But Jeff won't tell you that. Because, by the way, that passed. That passed the Board of Ed. It still has to pass the Board of Finance. But if the Board of Finance denies this plan, it is proof that they're just looking for a reason to blame the Board of Ed. Because this takes a huge chunk of money off of that bottom line that he keeps claiming the Board of Ed's taking, the Board of Ed's taking. The repair on Edgewood is almost absolute in its coverage, where it will not cost the taxpayers more than a couple of bucks. But he doesn't want you to know that. He doesn't want you to know that. So we got to keep going here. We got a few more of these. But it's because Also, because of the editing and how I had to do this with the new setup with this program, I can't quite see everything that it says. I tried labeling these, but they are long titles. And so literally, if you could see my screen right now, you could just see debate hyphen Jeff lies about and then ... Because this entire thing was a whole lot of lies. It was a whole lot of lies. And as we go in further, I actually have some images to show you. I have screenshots of text conversations I was having with people who were there when it was happening. It sheds some light on the subject. But yeah, so let's get back to it, shall we?
Describe the state of education in the town and what is the budget issue that you wanted to raise?
Well, we're going to go back to September 23rd, where Bristol was put on notice by the Department of Education for non-compliance with the minimum budget requirements, which in my recent history, is the only time that I've seen that happen, which brings us to the October 22nd, 2024 Board of Finance meeting, which was to make an additional appropriation of $3.4 million within the general fund back to the Board of Education. So here's the issues in bullet point. Chronic underfunding versus known cost trends. That is not overspending. It's underfunding. Failure to match real growth and state mandates. Optimistic reimbursement assumptions, which were left unfilled because it was easier that way. And that's related to excess cost. Reactive, not proactive budgeting. Outdated financial structure. And if you read the audit, you will see all of this in there. The audit was actually commissioned by the mayor and talked about all of the issues and the areas for improvement, including the fact that this underfunding has occurred over the last 4 years. I believe it's page 14. But we don't talk about that anymore because that audit didn't give us the answers that we wanted from our narrative. So outdated financial infrastructure, shared accountability, but no shared solution. So it doesn't work when you're constantly yelling and screaming at each other. And the first time that the Board of Ed dutifully per state reported that they were running a deficit should have been the time that the conversation started about how to fix it. That, and my last point, lack of contingency planning. A lot of this falls to the fact that we're chaos and lurching, not planning.
Just have to correct the revisionist history record because we do an audit every 5 or 6 years on the Board of Ed. I happened to be on the Board of Ed in 2017 when we did our first audit, and we were $2 million in deficit spending on special education at that time. This is a problem that has happened while the previous administration was in there, and that kept growing. We assumed that there was about a $5 million deficit in special education, and I'm looking around this room.
Now, mind you, I'm going to cut in right here for a second because he says, oh, we do this audit every 5 or 6 years, but it's an internal audit. When this audit came around that he did, he hired an outside consultant, paid with the city's money. And he didn't find what he wanted because he was trying to come up with this magical thing that the previous superintendent had embezzled money, and that just wasn't the case.
And I believe I was the only one to stand by a Democrat governor of this state to go in and ask for more excess cost funding. Everybody in this room could have been up there and asked for more. We have $40 million of excess cost spending that's come back.
He only asked for the funding after they were found non-compliant as far as the funding that they were giving.
I appreciate that from the state, but when people talk about, we need to have solutions, I see the solutions and we go after them. We are on a much better path with the Board of Education right now, but it's interesting that you brought up that we need to pay attention to the deficit spending and handling it. On August 17th, that same year that you just highlighted, we received a non-compliance letter and more money needed on the same day, August 17th. That was kind of interesting.
Last word on this issue, if you want.
So when Connecticut expanded the obligation to serve special education students to age 22, the city did not increase its appropriation to offset that addition, $600,000, which, again, it becomes a cycle of leaving the district structurally short. So think about your own households. You can't afford something, maybe put it on a credit card, maybe borrow. The hole keeps getting deeper, and that's what's happened. And some people want to fix it, but you just can't fix it by pointing fingers. You have to have constructive conversations with your partners.
Exactly. So as I touched on when I broke in during that was that Yeah, they were found in noncompliance. He's like, oh, we got the noncompliance letter and we got the additional funding on the same day. Yeah, no, that's not how that works. You had to go ask for additional funding because you refused to give the funding needed, and you were found in noncompliance. And then as a last-ditch effort, you went to the state at the 11th hour and said, we need more money. That's not how that counts, Jeff. That's not how that works. But you see, you're out of your fucking element, which I've said it before on here, and there's going to be video of other people telling you. This guy came from being a damn pharma salesman. He doesn't know about dealing with these large structural budgets. Do I? No. I don't have all the answers, but I will tell you this. I do have a business degree. I learned micro and macroeconomics. I have worked on boards of directors where finances have to be set out for the year. So I understand all of those aspects. This jackwagon does not. Moving on.
On WTIC News Talk 1080.
This is the beginning of the second
Welcome
half.
back to Brian and Company, live for you at Parkside Cafe in the city of Bristol. We are having a mayoral debate between two-term Mayor Jeff Cajano, looking for a third term, and former Mayor of Bristol, Ellen Zappo-Sassu. And again, we had a spirited first half. We're going toward the second half of the debate. And I think I want to start with Medicaid. There's a lot of confusion whether the potential cuts from the federal government will trickle down. And this is something even I'm confused by. Is there any...
And this is a big issue for a lot of people in the state. And I just love how Jeff's fucking minions love to go on social media and use the term gray card as a derogatory term and basically say, if you have a gray card, you're a leech. It's the same old Reagan Republican bullshit of the fucking myth of the welfare queen, which does not happen.
Can you give any clarity to people how cuts to Medicaid to the state would then impact a place like Bristol? I'll start with you, Mr. Mayor.
I think the good news right now is we haven't seen a direct impact yet. We could see over time that might trickle down for services. But on a city level, I'm going to make this more simple, I think, is those state and federal programs that are mostly social programs have downward impacts on the city, but the city has three main functions. We take care of public education, we take care of public safety, and we take care of all those public works things. It's the garbage being taken out, the roads and things of that sort. So the trickle-down effects could affect homelessness and other things like that. Then the city has to take the burden on, but that hasn't happened to this degree. And I do want to get people back to the straight answer to the question is that's not the role of city government. That's the role of state and federal government.
Literally just said that's not my job.
Again, it's a bit of a left field, but I get a lot of questions about confusion about how cuts in federal spending like Medicaid would impact a municipality like this.
Well, I think we're already seeing the impact with one of our major employers, Bristol Hospital. Bristol Hospital is a huge community asset. We have an integrated health system from birth to death. We have emergency room. We have an ambulance. We have Ingram Manor, which is now for sale because they can't afford to do business anymore, mostly because of the Medicaid reimbursement that's offered.
And Ingram Manor was built in my lifetime, like in my adult lifetime, I should say. It's not an old building. I remember when it was built. I remember when it was thriving. It wasn't that long ago. I mean, we're talking like in the last 15 years. Yeah. Maybe the last 17.
That's offered, and the fact that they serve people who come into the emergency room who can't afford to be there. So, yes, this is a huge issue, and it's one why I worked very closely with the hospital when I was mayor, and we integrated a lot of services. One of the ones that is the most important, I think, is the intersection of mental health, homelessness, and addiction. And we see that in our community, and I hope that homelessness does have a question in our future because, yes, My opponent calls himself a Reagan Republican. Lower taxes, smaller government, limited government regulations. But I think more like FDR, and that the test of our progress is not where we add more to the abundance of those who have much, but what we do for those that provide enough for those who have too little. And we have a serious social issue problem in Bristol that is linked directly to lack of reimbursement, lack of funding. And Medicaid is hitting people on the street right now. They're getting reduced money on their gray card. They're not able to pay for their medications, and it's spiraling. So yes, the role of government is to create that safety net so that we can stop the bleeding.
Jeff?
Two comments, and this is out to my friend Kurt Barwis, who let me know that I could say this, that he is actually for the integration of Bristol Health with UConn. I have many years of background in the biotech and pharma industry.
You were a fucking salesman.
And I think that'll bring greater services here, and our president and CEO of Bristol Health believes that as well, too. I will say we need to be more innovative in our approach, and so I want to give you one example that I have done is we've taken non-taxpayer dollars, and my worry about this is we don't want to take another item like homelessness and other things and create a budget line item that we're not going to be able to sustain. But we took Opioid Settlement Action Committee money, and we helped a group of homeless people over on Prospect Street. We took them from encampment to housing, and I did get kudos from our governor, who took $60 million of that opioid settlement money and are trying to do the same thing on a statewide level.
So you notice how I kind of switched it on. So this was a text conversation that I was having with someone who was present there, who said he was losing his shit. Basically, there was a question about police, but then it gets to the part that was great was my friend that was there said, I personally had to explain the opioid task force to him. He had no fucking clue. I have the email to prove it. So he wants to keep saying all these claims of, oh, I did this and blah, blah, blah. By the way, within the next segment or so, it's going to come back to bite him in the ass. It's a wonderful thing. But let's get there.
How have you improved services for seniors, low-income residents, or marginalized groups? Be specific.
And mind you, that is a big question. And the issue is that there isn't a lot of help for seniors in this city. There are some who are, retirement age, who are semi-well off, who it doesn't bother them. I have neighbors that, they own their house outright. That's completely fine. But there's others that don't. There's other people who got retirement age who still have, 5-10 years left on their mortgage. Or even worse, they got a second mortgage, or they refinanced, or, they got a reverse mortgage, yada, yada, 1,000 things. Low-income people can't afford to live in this fucking city. You can't find a one-bedroom apartment for anything less than like $1,500, which is sad. And I know it's that way in a lot of places here in Connecticut. Whether you're not local and it may not be that way where you are, it is here. And that's an issue.
Well, I think we're going to do something very soon to the senior tax home credit program.
It's always we're going to do something soon with this fucking
where we're going to increase the salary limit because we know that people are hurting here. And it's not a direct answer. And I'm a very direct, straightforward person.
No, you're not, motherfucker.
Help an individual, all we can do is lift the entire city. So what has happened with about $150 million of potential new grand list growth, and as many of you may or may not know, that phases in over time due to state mandates to give people tax abatements. We're going to see changes in the future. We also had hiring freezes in the city of Bristol for the first time ever that I'm aware of. We eliminated positions as well. We held our spending, and we actually brought back, because of good investments, $5.8 million to offset the $5.9 million deficit we had on the Board of Ed. You got to take these things as they come.
Always back to the Board of Ed.
I'm asking for 2 more years of patience so that we can do what wasn't done in the previous administrations, is stabilize our tax base.
So I guess you can respond to that specifically, or you could answer.
Now, mind you, this falls back on the whole, there was fake grand list growth under the previous administration. The grand list growth is because she sold those parcels. Just because developers hadn't broke ground on it yet, that was grand list growth. She sold the parcels. You did not. But now you're like, oh, it takes the grand list time. You flip-flopped in the same fucking debate within an hour.
Or you could answer the question, which is how would you improve services for seniors, low-income residents, or marginalized groups?
Well, I do want to pick up a thread that I didn't get a chance to respond on before about the use of opioid task force dollars. I believe that was in reference to clearing out the encampment that was on Prospect Street. Journey Home was involved, and dozens of people were moved.
And I'm familiar with that area because I lived on Prospect Street briefly in 2000.
People were moved. And according to the people who run the social service agencies here in town, every single one of them, except one who's now pregnant and probably not going to be able to keep her baby, every one of those people is back on the streets. So it didn't work. So that's good money being thrown after a program that looks good on paper, but when you don't have the wraparound services to provide the services, whether they be mental health, addiction, or an intersection of both, it fails. You can't just check a box with the social service issues. Homelessness in Bristol is a serious issue. And I'm going to ask you, do you know what happened to Cynthia and Dave?
I don't personally know Cynthia and Dave, but I will fact check
everybody
you on the
else does.
Journey Home reported to me that they only housed 6 people, and all 6 people are still housed, and they're doing well.
No.
Now, listen, I think this is an area where there's a clear distinction between you and I. I want to help those people. We'll come up with innovative programs. It's not part of the city budget. And this is the kind of very disingenuousness of blaming all the taxes on Jeff, but yet creating new services that will raise our taxes. We need to partner with the state of Connecticut, who took $60 million of their money to try to replicate this program. I hope they have better success.
Oh, I do
It's
too.
a very difficult problem. Obviously, mental health issues and other things are there. One other innovative
wasn't
thing
done.
that I did, just real quickly,
You asked
and then I'll let you go.
in fairness, you asked him a question.
Exactly. So
In all fairness, she asked if you knew what happened to those people. That was it. Now he's going off on this fucking tale, and his buddy running the debate is letting him.
also took our cannabis money that we get from adult recreation sales, and I know that wasn't a popular decision across the city, but we hired 2 community wellness officers off of not direct.
Whoopity-doo! We're bringing in all this cannabis money, and we used it to hire 2 cops who don't walk a beat.
Pay our money. Obviously, the people that are using the cannabis are paying that. And those 2 community wellness officers are now getting out into the community. We had a 1-year anniversary of that. They're sustainable.
They're actually not, because these community wellness officers, from what I've been told, are basically Jeff's little cronies of, I don't like gay and trans people. Keep an eye on it.
Funding for that. And I think these are real solutions that are innovative, but don't increase our tax dollars.
Ms. Salvasasso, I'll give you 30 seconds, but I'm going to hold you to it.
Yep.
That's bullshit. You're going to give her 30 seconds.
Hold you to it.
Yep, the opioid task force was a vibrant piece of our landscape here, and it was making real solutions. The COBRA program and getting people into recovery beds, they don't even meet anymore. Whenever I check the agenda, it usually says that the meeting's been canceled and they've been moved to quarterly. The problem's not going away, but the audience that needs the answers from government who can provide that framework, whether it be tax dollars or social service dollars, they don't have an audience
Can we
anymore.
please have 30
I just have to fact check that one. The opioids task force put the $80,000 from the opioid funds towards the Journey Home program, and you can come to our meeting on October 10th, because that's the next meeting.
Can we
we
please
have.
have
No,
30 seconds on
Patty.
seniors to both of you?
So the senior tax credit and the volunteer tax credit happened with our administration, and I think that attention needs to be given to creating the senior center to be, it's one of the best senior centers in the state, but more people need to go there. The fact that people are living independently longer and in isolation is a real issue. So creating third places, which means the senior center, or in some cases it's people's churches and community areas, that's what keeps our seniors connected, and it's what keeps them medication adherent, it keeps them talking to their neighbors, it keeps them safe.
I disagree with one thing she said. She said the senior center is one of the best in the state. It is the best in the state.
Yeah, kiss ass all you fucking want. It doesn't hide the fact you don't know what the fuck you're talking
Money
about.
to fix the parking lot. I see a lot of seniors here that have been complaining about that for years. And we are also moving Bristol Burlington Health Department over to an open part of the building where Beck Center lived. And we now are increasing our space there. I think we do need to invest in our community. We have about 40 seniors that add to the senior center every year. And, we have a lot of people to take care of. Remember, we have that young population that's moving in that has overtaken our senior population as well. So we got to take care of them as well.
So once again, the talking point of the young population, which we get a little more info on later because it's one of those skewed things where on the balance sheet, this is why, but here's the real reason, if you catch my drift. But let's move on here because we've only got a couple little bits more left of this before we can really get into the fun.
I'm going to put this to Ms. Sapo-Sasu. It's going to be a very direct question, and you can take it where you'd like. In the current political climate, how would you handle issues, organization, and implementation of DEI?
And now here's where the conservative radio host is hoping to get his big fucking soundbite. And it doesn't come out how he wants.
Well, I think that a lot of that is mandated, but what in the city of Bristol, my administration in the spring of 2018 formed the first diversity committee, and we had a very diverse group of people from all walks of life, from all nationalities, religions, etc. And I think that it did a lot of really great work and conversations over the course of the last administration. I understand that it's in transition, that it's looking to find a new purpose and focus, and I think that these conversations have to continue. Sometimes they're not easy ones, and I think we've seen over the course of the past week that sometimes controversial content leads to violence instead of dialogue and thoughtful responses.
And mind you, this was within a few days of the Charlie Kirk.
And I think that if the Diversity Council here in Bristol can be that role model to make people feel safe to have conversations that might make some people uncomfortable but provoke critical thinking and better understanding, then I think that that still belongs under government, and I think it's a role that they need to continue to play.
Can I add on that? So I'm actually proud that in 2022 we did a DEI survey within the city of Bristol, and just an overall quality survey, and the results were very good for City Hall employees at that time. The other thing that I want to mention is Diversity Council. I think there's been some innuendos that the Diversity Council is something I'm trying to get rid of. JR is going to kill me for this, but they just came together and they're looking at diversity and inclusion and connecting that with economic and community development. So I'll remind all of you that just up the street over here, our friends at Guac and Roll are the first cash mob that's going to be hosted by the Diversity Council. So, they have seen a lot of ups and downs. I'm very supportive of them in their mission, and I think they're moving into a different mission where we're going to celebrate diversity and inclusion. I don't think there's anybody here that would disagree with that.
So you notice how he forgot a word in there, which is funny because this was the text conversation that was going on at the same time with my friend who was in the room. And it was, he doesn't believe in DEI. He said that to my face. And then I actually said, does he basically say he supports diversity because of guac and roll, because of a Mexican restaurant? Like, that sounds about white. And then my friend said he specifically hates the word equity, which is hilarious because he did not say diversity, equity, inclusion. He just said diversity and inclusion. And let's talk about the Diversity Council for just a minute, shall we? So the Diversity Council was formed under the previous administration. They have no funding. My wife and I went to a couple Diversity Council meetings to see what was going on, to see how it was run. We haven't been since the new head of the Diversity Council was taken over, but I know that he is very capable of what he is doing, which I'm pretty sure is why this cash mob is happening. The previous person did not know what she was doing. And as it was, they didn't even read their own bylaws because they were trying to do fundraising, but their bylaws, as ratified by the current mayor, said that they are not allowed to do any fundraising and that they have to allocate funds directly from City Hall. And that therein lies the problem. Because you see, the Diversity Council has no funding. The Opioid Task Force meets quarterly, and even those get canceled, as Zapo Sasu said. There used to be a mayor's AIDS task force, which is all but disbanded because the mayor decided to pull a fast one on the previous head of that task force, who I know very well, and said, I need you to write me a thesis, Mr. We don't believe in you. While other people are doing theses, blah, blah, blah. I need you to write a thesis on why you deserve funding. And it needs to be submitted, and we need to have a hearing about it by this day. The person wrote this letter. They go to submit it, and the mayor says, oh, no, well, we moved the meeting, and it happened last week, and we decided not to fund you anymore. And the AIDS task force is basically disbanded. They still have a page listed, and they still have the former head listed there, and the former head doesn't even live in Bristol anymore. She said, take my name off of this because you are in federal violation now. Guess what? They can't even do that. Simple line and a piece of social media. Can't do it. But this is what happened under this administration. All of these satellite organizations that he now wants to pull out of the mothballs and go, look, we still have it. They have no funding. And also, what is completely fucked, which I don't understand, is the Diversity Council is a volunteer organization. It is not a paid by the city position. You are a volunteer. But in order to be able to serve on the Diversity Council, you have to get approved by the mayor. He has final say on who gets to participate. How fucked is that? That a volunteer organization, you need to get vetted. Because I know people who tried to get on it. And the mayor said no. Which, I'm sorry, and I'm not going to name names because of people's privacy, but when a trans person is trying to sign on to be a volunteer on the Diversity Council and you put your own fucking stereotypes and bigotry before the good of what the fucking organization stands for and goes, no. That speaks more volumes about you than it does about the city.
Okay, I want to get to one issue I know nothing about, okay, and I just want to do it quickly and move on. I got two questions on Sheridan Woods.
For those of you not familiar, not from the area, Sheridan Woods is another nursing home. It's rather close to my neighborhood. Funny story, my mother actually worked for Sheridan Woods for years when I was in elementary school. It's been there for a very long time. However, right now, they might not make it. I
don't know anything about it, but the questions were basically, how will you make sure that it will remain open long-term and fund it? I guess I'll put it to you first.
Yeah, I went with Senator Henry Martin and Mary Fortier, bipartisan effort to maybe go in and talk about that facility and how important it was to Bristol. I announced at a city council meeting, I think it was 2 months ago now, that they were allowed to take residents back in, and they are admitting residents, and we're very hopeful that that sale, and I think Ellen mentioned that earlier, will go through. It is a vital part of the community, and the state is actually struggling very mightily trying to fund these facilities because of Medicaid and Medicare cuts, and we need to fight for it here. Again, I'm not against having a bipartisan representation on the state.
Absolutely,
it's another state issue, obviously, because the state runs our nursing homes, but happy to report that I believe that we're in good shape. Again, we need a private deal to happen. I'm knocking on wood that it's going to happen, but talking to the leadership group there, they're pretty confident.
I think this is probably one of the larger differences with leadership. So I was at that public hearing because I have a lot of friends at Sheridan Woods, and I call them friends, but they're also residents. I stayed for the entire public hearing, as did Representative Fortier. The mayor did not. Neither did Senator Martin. They came in, they dropped their papers, they said their piece, and they were out the door. But for 3 hours, we sat there and listened to people some who don't have family or friends to take care of them, that Sheridan Woods is their home. The city was too late for Countryside, but we were not too late for Sheridan. And it's mostly because of advocacy of the family like Jerry Gisandi, who's no longer with us, who died over the summer, who was a fierce advocate for his sister. I'm at Sheridan Woods probably 3 times a week because my friend Ed, who I take care of, needs his Jolly Ranchers. Sometimes he needs a different size Band-Aid than what they provide him. Now I'm friends with Debbie, whose brother died over the summer, and I take care of Alejandra, and there's other people there. These people are just not warehoused at Sheridan Woods. They need visitors, they need friends, they need a connection to their community.
Jeff,
And we did.
Just to cut in on that, just because this is just the staunch difference between the current mayor and the former mayor, is the former mayor actually knows these people. You know, they named off Dave and Cynthia from the opioid homelessness issue. They named off these people at Sheridan Woods. And, you know, it's not just like, it's not reading names off of a ledger of, I spoke to this person and that person. There's an actual human connection. I don't want to jump the gun, but I will share more info about the difference in how the one in office has no human connection and the one trying to get back into office.
And we did advocate for
You have
housing
30
funding.
seconds.
All I'll say is what we advocated for, which is something we should look at, is the state of Connecticut is sitting on a huge pot of money for housing, and they're not releasing it. My argument was very clear then. These are their residences. This is their housing. The state should help to keep these places in business. Listen, I don't run the state. The opposite party does, and so I think we need to hold them.
Once again, getting catty as fuck and putting the blame on someone else.
Accountable as well.
Okay,
Yeah, I can't. So we got 2 little bits left here. One is Fuckbuckle bragging about his endorsement by the police, but kind of backfires on him. And the last is his closing statement.
I couldn't agree more. I will just. Oh, but wait, I gotta add something. I'm sorry to throw this on everybody here, but just this week, I received the endorsement from both the police department and the fire department. I think that speaks. We could have a clap. I saw somebody want to clap. I think that speaks to.
He just pulled a Jeb Bush please clap moment, ladies and
To the
gentlemen.
relationship that I have with them and the ability to get them the resources they need, and this has been a primary focus for me. They have stepped up enforcement in this town, so be careful. Drive safely out there. They're pulling you over. They're giving too many warnings and not enough tickets in my estimation. But we also, this is the difference between the former mayor and myself, is we had a very open debate and dialogue on the traffic enforcement cameras.
And that's going to come back in the next segment, people.
And we have put a pause on that because we heard from the community that they didn't want it. These are the types of things that I do out in open public forums and, you know, quite honestly, don't script meetings and tell people that they can't do that.
20 seconds on whether you want to comment on speed cameras or...
Well, I'm wondering what the next tax increase is going to be because I'm sure the fire department is looking for their 16 new firefighters and their tower truck that's going to be parked at the new Engine 3. That's about a $1.62 million annual expenditure. So we'll see how that gets paid.
And you wonder why they endorsed him. Because they need more shit. Plain and simple. And finally, we get to Jeff stroking his own.
Mr. Mayor.
I think it's a continuation. The one thing I disagree with it is there will be no empty lots downtown, and the city won't own any of them in the next 2 years. We're going out to bid this month.
Mind you, he said that in his first term. He's running for his third.
On that. I really think that the vibe of this city has changed and will continue to change towards that younger demographic that's coming here from New Britain, Waterbury, other cities. I've met people from Texas, Alabama, Minnesota. Bristol is on the move. It's been on the move for the last 3 years, and I really look forward to being here as mayor to wrap these things up. I've committed to all of you that I guarantee you this is the last time I'm running for mayor. I think civic service is about doing your duty, doing the best you can. I work, live, and play downtown because I want to be the vision of the future, and I think my biggest job is to be cheerleader for this city, and I think JR and others, because I heard him earlier, people do feel the difference, and I want to continue that difference.
Yeah, no. You see, the whole younger people that I've met from Texas and Minnesota and all that, those are employees of ESPN who have relocated to Bristol because Bristol, Connecticut is the headquarters of ESPN. They're Disney employees, motherfucker. They go where the company tells them. As it was over on, it was either on White Heat or it was over on PWT with Phil Marks when I was there. We were talking about how there's a bunch of ESPN employees in California who were told you have to relocate to Bristol or quit. And they're bitching about it. They don't want to come out here, even though the amount of money they make in California far exceeds what the people out here start at. So they would be able to live very well. Problem is, not all those ESPN employees are moving to Bristol. Some of them are. A handful. When he says, I met people from Texas and Minnesota, so you met 4 people? 5? That's nice. Most of the people I know, because I have friends who work at ESPN and I have friends who have friends who work at ESPN, and a lot of them have been buying, they've either been buying or renting condos in Plainville, in Southington, in Britain. They're not coming to Bristol. Those monstrosities that I mentioned over on North Main, they claim that all of those apartments are spoken for. But no one recalls them opening up options for leases for people. Nobody recalls that. And they're empty right now. There's a couple of storefronts that have moved in on the bottom that I don't even want to know how much they're paying for their fucking storefronts. But we're going to get to that in a little while too. But those apartments are empty. No one's moving in. So that takes us to the next section here. So that was the debate. Mind you, I was probably going to talk about the debate. However, prior to the debate, we had another one of these fucking things.
Wait, nobody proceeds any further without permission? What is your name, and what business do you have here?
Hello, my name is Jessica. My pronouns are she/her, and I've been sent by the Queen to address the Bristol Board of Wokies.
Well, Jessica, no one can proceed any further until they state the secret phrase. The Queen must have relayed that to you.
Yes, the secret phrase is, Orange Trumpelstiltskin must be obliterated.
Good. All right then, I will escort you to the meeting of the Bristol Board of Wokies, where you will meet them and our honorary board chair, Cafe Verona. Follow me, please.
Once again, this shows how they know nothing about anything, because Sessions Woods is nothing like this.
Your honorary board chair, this person has approached the camp and says her pronouns are she, her, and wishes to address the council. Her name is Jessica. And Jessica, this is our honorary board chair, Cafe Verona.
Thank you, Sergeant at Arms. I can take it from here. Hello, Jessica. You can address me as the honorary board chair or Cafe Taffy. My pronouns are also she, her. So I hear you want to run as a Democrat in the city council. Is that correct?
Yes, your honorary board chair. It would be my greatest honor to serve the town of Bristol as a Democrat city councilor. I will make sure I put the needs of the party before the needs of the people. I'm here to serve as a drone to the great collective.
Well, we discussed it, and we are having some issues. First, you were once a Republican on the BOE. Same thing with your husband. He was a Republican also. He wasn't just a Republican, but one that ran for mayor against our beloved Queen. This is a problem that has to be dealt with.
Blasphemy, pure, unadulterated blasphemy.
Yeah, I have no fucking clue what people's damage is, but hey, Daryl, you're not fucking funny. Nobody watches your shit. You can click refresh 1,000 times on it to make it look like people are watching your shit. No one's watching your shit. You're not funny. You and Jen Van Gorder got caught. And that was completely, like, there was no reason for it. I hadn't thought about that bullshit in a long time. But, apparently, when you live rent-free in people's heads, you keep coming up. I mean, I'm no one important in this city. I'm just a guy. I'm a registered independent. I don't knock on doors. I don't pass out signs. I just speak about what's fucking wrong. I criticize what needs criticism. Segue. Because it's October and the election is next month. This is when Jeff tries to pull rabbits out of his hat to keep the misdirection. Because that's what they do. Blame, deflect, misdirect. That's actually a pretty good slogan. They should use that. Blame, deflect, misdirect. Because that's what they do. So you see, when people start saying, hey, wait a second, because something's going on, we got to go, no, look over here, look what I did. And that's when you get shit like this.
In front of Chick Miller Chevrolet. And when people think of Bristol, they think of a couple things. They think of, unfortunately, the downtown that didn't get revitalized over time. That has obviously happened. We've reported a lot on that. But Chick Miller was abandoned in 2008. And yesterday, the longtime owner of this property finally went to inland wetlands and put a permit in for demolition. They have an LEP on site. They have a local contractor that has been contracted and paid. So the demolition of this eyesore, this property, is underway. For about 18 years, that developer has worked with several different mayors, and they do have a plan to build a housing complex here after that will be done. But at this point, we're very excited to announce that we will see the demolition of this long-standing building in the West End. And this will help revitalize the West End dramatically, just to take down this building. But we look forward to working with the owner to make sure that that process comes along.
So there's a reason I brought that up. So yeah, so for those unfamiliar, the Chick Miller's auto site is over in the West End. It used to be a large dealership and mechanic that was there for years upon years. Unfortunately, when they had their auto shop, they were dumping their oil and antifreeze and transmission fluid and everything basically into the ground. So that became a Superfund site. When Chick Miller closed down, which happened in 2008, and here's how bad they were struggling. I remember back in 1999 running my father's business in Bristol, talking to my friend who lived next door, one of our customers who worked at Dodge Village, talking about how Dodge Village is going out of business and how they don't know how much longer Chick Miller's can last. Chick Miller's ended up lasting another 8 years. They went out of business. Became a Superfund site. It's contaminated as fuck. When something's a Superfund site, it takes a lot of remediation and everything to be able to actually, clean out, dig up and everything. And then once again, this is all he fucking does is say, oh, we're going to build more housing here. We don't need more fucking housing in this city. There's apartment buildings everywhere that are going unrented. There's houses on every fucking street that are for sale because no one can afford to fucking buy houses right now. We do not need another fucking apartment building or luxury condo complex or whatever in the West End. Why? Because there's nothing in the West End anymore. What do you have? You have Southside Meat Market, which is a little tiny spot, which who knows how long they're going to last because they're an independent distributor and they don't have a big space, so it's not like they can afford to do the whole big thing. You have a laundromat. You have West End Pizza. You've got a little cafe and a gas station. That's it. There's no grocery state. There's no grocery store. There's no pharmacy. There's nothing. Nothing. You know, he talks about, downtown Bristol and the West End. Nothing's been revitalized. The West End, the street got retooled. But that was a state project. Like, you had nothing to do with that. You're trying to fucking demolish the old fucking Bristol Athletic Club, which the people who currently own it want to renovate it. That would be revitalizing the West End. No, you want it knocked the fuck down. Because that's what you want. You want everything knocked down. But there's a major flaw with this whole thing, because here we are, it's October, and he announces Chick Miller's is finally going to get demolished. I need Mr. Peabody and Sherman here to take us in the Wayback Machine, because I have something else to show you. This all ties together. You just have to be patient. But, yeah. So I need to jump into the Wayback Machine. And I think it's somewhere over here.
This is such a cool space. I'm in the Sessions building, which is on Riverside Avenue, gateway into downtown, a project that's long been undertaken, and literally a project that has 20 years of no taxes being collected here. In 2019, we made an agreement with the state of Connecticut to go ahead and get $2 million to clean up this brownfield site and bring us workforce housing. Workforce housing is exactly what it sounds like. It's for the regular working people out there to go ahead and afford places like this when they're teachers and firefighters and local people working here. And if you look at this space is going to make an awesome apartment for somebody. It's got the great wood pillars and the huge windows with great light in here. Just excited to know that this is going to come to fruition in the near future. The Sessions project is a great example of how the city of Bristol has been working very closely with the state and in a lot of different programs that we have taken advantage of and working closely with the state. The first is the SIF grant, where we have $6.8 million to
By the way, the grants that he's talking about were handled by the previous administration.
go ahead and do the entire streetscape of Riverside over. This is our gateway to downtown, so we want to make sure that it's a walkable, livable commute for people.
It already is a walkable, livable commute. There's sidewalks on both sides.
People to even walk downtown from this building. In addition to the money that we got,
I used to walk down Riverside Ave every fucking night when I was in Prospect.
We also did receive a $2 million grant from DECD to go ahead and do the brownfield remediation in this building from the years of factory work and contamination that has happened. This is actually very cool. I don't know if you're filming that. This is so cool. We are in the city's only water-powered elevator. And we're heading up now to the second floor of the Sessions building. And
I'm pretty sure that's going to
need
need
a relic, but working very well. And look at the bones in this place. This is very cool. I don't think there's many people that can say they've taken a ride in a water-powered elevator. We're in the president's office of the Sessions building. Obviously, a lot of great work was done here before. And the work that you all probably won't see in the very near future is when the fences go outside to quarantine off this building. All of the work is actually being done in offices like this and other places that we'll show you in a second. In here, there's an awful lot of asbestos that has to be remediated, but this will eventually be a very cool apartment building for somebody down.
Take a look there. Remediation will be completed by spring of 2024. Keep that in mind.
Completely remodeled into apartments.
The building was finished in 1905. As you see it now, we did not have 4 floors here. It was only a single floor. I do know during the war, all women worked in here.
Oh, very
They
cool.
were doing all the manufacturing for the war.
Kind of exciting, I'm sure, for you to see that, hey, it's going to get repurposed Bristol is a great manufacturing town, as some of the history that we've seen here. And although it won't be used for manufacturing in the future, we're going to have maybe some local manufacturers that will be able to live here and stay in and around Bristol. We're still a huge manufacturing center. Going to be dramatically different over time. First step is to make sure that we take care of the brownfield areas and the cleaning. Once it's cleaned, we'll get that into the hands of the developer.
So why did I show you that? Well, there's a reason. There's a reason. And it's not going to go well for some people. Developers move on from Sessions property. This is an article by the Bristol Edition. I will leave it in the link below. This was published within the last week or so. October 4th, so 3 days. The JB Sessions and Son building remediation is facing a setback after a developer withdrew from the project, the Economic and Community Development Committee learned at its meeting earlier this week. The Michaels organization, a developer out of Camden, New Jersey, backed out of the project due to requirements by the state for an affordable development, said Justin Malley, Economic and Community Development Executive Director, at the board's monthly meeting Thursday night. According to the city website, the 80,000 square foot former mill building on Riverside Avenue was the recipient of a $2 million grant from the state for cleanup costs, intending to turn it into workforce housing. Developers applying for low-income housing tax credit and financing through the Connecticut Housing Finance Authority, CHFA, must have construction document drawings 40% completed at the time of application. Malley noting that for a project like Sessions, that's $500,000 to do 40% drawings. Malley said the drawings requirement rose to 90% completed in May, to which Michaels could not get their board of directors to agree on making such an investment. We've met with them a couple of different times. They've been great, but they just cannot make the investment without knowing if those tax credits would ever come in, Malley said. Mike Goman of Goman & York Property Advisors appeared over a Zoom call, pointing to market uncertainty and the competitive nature of applying for and receiving the low-income housing tax credit. Michael's determination was kind of a bridge too far. Just was a risk they weren't prepared to take, to gamble $1 million on whether they would get awarded these 9% tax credits. 9%. Vice Chairman Howard Schneider expressed frustration with the timeliness of the information, asking if they knew that the project was not viable in May, why the board was finding this out in October, to which Malley responded that the information about the percent change was not made aware until the end of the summer. We spent a good month and a half working on alternatives to see if there was a way to make it work, Mayor Jeff Fuckbuckle said after considering alternative developers over the summer. The property would be going out to bid again. In other news, the board made a motion to have a letter of recommendation written in favor of developing a 1.35-acre development site in the downtown area on the corners of North Main and Riverside Ave. That's the 1.5-acre spot that he keeps talking about. Malley said that the board was waiting on a letter of approval from the state and had received an appraisal of $650,000 from the site, noting that the adjacent Wheeler Family Health and Wellness Clinic was about the same amount. City grant writer Dawn Ledger is looking for an urban greens and community garden grant through the Department of Environmental Protection that would fund half the construction of the property, with city looking to match at almost $200,000. Fuckbuckle said that the project came to fruition after the city had made an agreement with the state to aid in constructing the Hope Street parking garage, which would have covered design costs, with the city picking up the rest of the costs. Fuckbuckle noted that ARPA funds had to be used to complete the parking garage, citing a lack of available funding. He loves those ARPA funds, but hates who actually put those into effect. So, you see the correlation here? He's talking about, look, Chick Miller is going to get yada, 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 and it's going to be gone soon. That video I showed you was from 2023. Said that the remediation will be done by May of 2024. In May of 2025, It wasn't done. In October, they backed out. These are called empty promises. This is called misdirection. He's doing it because there's an election in a month. And I swear to you, I will tell you right now, hand to the fucking gods. If that chick Miller gets demolished within the next 12 months, I will donate 100% of this month's October 2025. I will donate 100% of my YouTube partner earnings to, I'm not going to give it to the Republican Party, but I will give it to something that they're backing once it actually gets demolished. So if it gets demolished within 12 months, I guarantee you that I will donate my YouTube partner money for October 2025 towards one of their causes. That's how adamant I am that they are not going to have it done. But hey, we got to let people look over here instead of over here. And we got to give them false hopes. Always got to give them false hopes because that's what keeps us in office. Right, Jeff? So that brings us to the last section. And that is the fact that as I am recording this, and I wanted to have this out before this evening, but, well, it's going to come out just later in the evening. Like I said, it's October 7th. So yesterday, there was a community forum hosted by the Bristol Edition, the publication where I just got that article that I read you. It had been advertised for a while. Now, mind you, during the first debate, they mentioned at the end of the debate, the next mayoral debate will be a community forum hosted by the Bristol Edition on October 6th. Old Jeff was standing right there and didn't say boo. Didn't say, oh, no, I'm sorry, we can't make it to that one. There were articles shared about this for the last couple of weeks, which, here's something real funny. I'm just going to pull this up real quick. So when it came to that first debate, I talked about how apparently the mayor didn't want people to know that it was happening. In a local group, I shared that it was happening, and I said, why has the mayor's office not let anyone know about this? To which this was the response. City pages shouldn't be used for political purposes. Mind you, this is the guy who does several videos a month about how the Board of Ed is stealing all of the taxpayers' money. This is the guy who puts up pictures of himself in his campaign fucking hat. Literally, Sheridan Woods talks about that. He literally put up a picture. I'm not going to share it because it was in such bad taste, of a 100-year-old woman in a hospital bed with him standing there with his campaign on going, she says she can't wait for early voting because she wants to vote for me at least one more time, and put it on the mayor's fucking page, the mayor's office page. But no, the city pages shouldn't be used for political purposes, which is bullshit. Which was even funnier when, after the debate, he shared the link for, you can listen to the debate again here, to which I shared that screenshot as a comment. But apparently, oh no, he changed his mind. But so here we go. Here's another community forum. Now, the mayor's page didn't share anything about it, of course, because of course they didn't. Of course they fucking didn't. Because they didn't want people to know. Well, you see, I knew. And a couple of people told me, watch, he's not going to show up. Watch, he's not going to show up. And I said, well, we'll see, because, had a little verbal altercation, shall we say, on social media with a couple of people who are currently running for re-election or slash first election for the Board of Ed, who, I'm sorry, but if you want to run to be on something that represents educators and you're that fucking immature, Jen, you really shouldn't fucking be there, especially because you don't know what you're doing. Go knock on Shell's door again and let her fucking school you again, because that shit was hilarious. So, I apologize because for some reason the encoding of this, I couldn't get it, so I'm going to disappear when I play these. However, I will link you to the full live stream down below as well. But this was the candidate forum that took place at the Bristol Public Library last night. Here was the opening.
All right, I hope we are live. Folks, welcome to the Bristol Edition's first candidate forum for the Bristol and City Council and the Bristol Mayoral races. Prior to this debate, we did invite all the candidates to participate. Unfortunately, the members of the Republican Party opted not to participate, so they are not here tonight. That said, doesn't mean there aren't issues that we discussed, and I think questions that we prepared prior to tonight are an opportunity for the candidates who are here to speak about their ideas. I think the important thing is because the opposition is not here, let's focus on what you guys are going to do rather than what the other side did wrong or why they don't deserve. Let's talk be positive. Think about the old movies with boxers, and I'm the ref. Go out there and have a clean fight. Talk about the issues. Bristol residents deserve to know what you're going to do. Lots of issues that are happening in the city, and there's ideas out there how to improve what we've got. So we are going to begin talking a little bit about the rules. Each candidate is going to, on the council side, will have a 1.5 minute opening, and then they're going to have the opportunity for each question to be asked, 1.5 minutes.
So that's how it started. 7 Republicans no-showed. No-showed. What does that say about you? Because what's hilarious is the amount of excuses that have come forward afterwards. But I'm getting ahead of myself because, well, there was a question as to why they no-showed, and I just want to play this little clip.
Step up so we give you mic.
So, Chuck, could I ask a brief question? What's the party issue statement as to why they're not participating?
They did not.
Thank you.
Excuse me, what was the question? Hello? They're having a hard time hearing the back. Was just asked. Could you repeat that for me, please?
Which question?
I don't know, someone asked a question.
Oh, they just asked if they were, there was a public statement from the Republicans. And we didn't get one. They were just not.
Okay, I wasn't looking.
Please, thank you very much. Hi.
So, yeah, they just gave no reason, just didn't show. And there was plenty of time to draft a letter, respond to emails, say, I'm sorry, we unfortunately have a prior engagement that night and we cannot make it. But did they do that? No. Why would that make any sense? No. So what happened was, sometime between 60 and 90 minutes into this, they decided to make a post. Now, I know you can't see this, so I will read it to you as it states. Local Democrats have been promoting a candidate forum happening tonight, wrongfully claiming that both political parties will attend, while knowing full well that Republican candidates had prior commitments, RSVP'd no, and could not participate. They'll try to spin this as dodging debate, but nothing could be further from the truth. We already participated in a mayoral debate and look forward to the upcoming Senior Center Forum this Wednesday and the Chamber of Commerce debate on October 28th. We're proud of the incredible progress Bristol has made over the last 4 years and remain focused on continuing to build a better, stronger community together. And then, of course, in the red is don't fall for political tricks. Real forums only happen when both sides can come to the table. And then they list how there's another forum Wednesday at 1:30 at the Bristol Senior Center, and then October 28th at the Chamber of Commerce debate at the Boulevard School. But you see, here's the problem. People check. People see what receipts are. So far, and this is the problem, is we've gotten so many different stories because nobody is corroborating with each other. One hand doesn't know what the other one is doing, because then we got this today. Literally, as I was editing to get these sound bites and clips up, something else popped up. And that was this. Setting the record straight. The Bristol Edition hosted a debate last night at the Bristol Library. The Bristol Edition is owned and operated by Dave Fortier, husband of Democratic State Representative Mary Fortier. Weeks ago, a number of the Bristol Republican candidates informed the Bristol Edition that they could not attend due to prior commitments. Some Republicans contacted the Bristol Edition as early as September 4th to respond that they would not be able to attend. Despite this, both the Bristol Edition and the Bristol Democratic Town Committee have attempted to spin the narrative that Republicans simply didn't show up. That is completely false and misleading to Bristol voters. It's also untrue that all Bristol Republican candidates are retired, as the Bristol Democratic Town Committee claims. Only one is. These misleading statements are nothing more than theatrics by the Bristol Edition and the Democratic Town Committee, who were fully aware ahead of time that our candidates would not be present. Making name tags for absent candidates only to stage them as no-shows was a deliberate attempt to misrepresent the facts. Bristol voters deserve honesty and transparency, not political games. Don't be fooled by misleading narratives. This type of political spin and lack of transparency is exactly what Bristol saw under Ellen Zappo's previous administration. Bristol deserves leadership that focuses on honesty, accountability, and our community's future, not more drama and division. Not more drama and division, you say? Well, gee, that's funny, because that's exactly what you're fucking doing! Because here's the problem. Like I said, no one can corroborate their stories, because some people are saying, oh, the mayor was meeting with local union, blah, 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 blah. To which it was responded by people, Ellen met with that union earlier in the day. And they already endorsed her. So where was he meeting them? Why was he meeting them? And what time? And no one could give an answer. Now you might say, well, there were city hall meetings. Well, you see, once again, thank you, Bristol Edition, who are not, as they say, a Democratic-funded rag. Because once again, deny, deflect, blame, deflect, misdirect. As so is their playbook. City meetings for Monday, October 6, 2025. Meetings on the city calendar for today, Monday, October 6th. Conservative Commission, Inland Wetlands, and Watercourses Agency, 6:30 p.m. Council Chamber, City Hall. For agenda with link to virtual meeting, click here. Library Board of Directors, 6:30 p.m. Bristol Public Library, 5 High Street. Parking Authority, 6:30 p.m. Meeting Room 1, City Hall. Canceled. Those are the only meetings that were set. One was at the library where this forum was held, and no one on the city council was there. Parking Authority, canceled. Inland and Wetlands, well, that was to deal with things dealing with Birch Pond and the Hoppers, and which I find extremely funny because The people who were there for that were then at the community forum. So it was a short meeting, and they made it in time for the community forum. Here's the other thing. You're telling me that all members of the city council couldn't make it. All members of the city council couldn't make it. And the mayor couldn't make it because of these mysterious meetings. Gee, that's funny. You know why? You know why? If only. Mark Dickow is the only Democrat on the city council currently. And he showed up to this. So if there was a city council meeting where everyone had to be present, how did Mark make it? And it was there beforehand. It's not like he came running in and was like, sorry, there was a meeting, yada, yada. He was there before it started. You know how I know? Here's a clip.
Knocking doors this year, even in comparison to last year or 2 years ago, people really want to talk. They're very interested in what's going on in the city of Bristol. They're asking questions like everybody else has been saying about taxes, about public safety. I mean, in District 3, we have a lot of public safety issues at traffic lights. At the corner of Pine Street and Middle Street and Lake Avenue, and also at Emmett Street and Pine Street. Those are 3 extremely dangerous intersections. As a matter of fact, last week I was talking to somebody that said that their daughter got hit on Central Street and Pine Street. She had the walk signal, was walking across the road, and somebody went through a red light, and she ended up on the hood of the car. So safety has been a big thing. That's why I was looking at the red light cameras. It was actually brought to the ordinance committee from the chief of police, Mark Dorello, and we had some additional questions about it. So we sent it back to the police commission, and they said, no, we're not doing that. It's going to cost too much for the city. But if you look at Washington Depot, who has pretty much one traffic light in the city, they reported over $650,000 worth of earnings in 8 months. That is something that we could do here in this city.
Yeah. So Mark, who's on the city council, was there. And oh yeah, remember that thing they talked about, traffic cams? Yeah, he's the one that was behind it and was shot down because he's the only Democrat on the council. Because people favor party over actual people. Which was a running topic last night. And I made a bunch of these clips, but I'm not going to play all of them because there's a lot, and we've already been going along tonight. And I'd like to get this edited and out for public consumption. But there's a little bit that I wanted to play where there were candidates who wanted to talk about it. Because I thought it was very eloquent.
What's that? Now, what distinguishes you from others in this race that you might not have mentioned in your opening statement?
Well, I'm here. I could take my time and have some fun with that, but I'm going to honor Mr. Chaikin's request, and instead I'm just going to focus on the fact that I do pride myself in being able to collaborate with just about anyone. And I think that it is important that when you are in any role in city leadership, in city governance, that you can put partisan politics aside and that you can focus on people. Because at the end of the day, I am not here to represent only Democrats. I am not here to only represent Republicans. I am here to represent everyone who resides in District 2. Because everybody working together is what's going to make our community thrive.
Mr. Kelly.
I'm going to ride Jen's coattails a bit on her comment because we had a discussion about this prior, and it's very important to be as nonpartisan as you can be and put people over politics, because we owe the citizens of Bristol, regardless of their political affiliation, to work for them, not work for our party. And I'll give you an example that Jen brought up today when we had that conversation. I was a liaison to the Board of Education when Jen was serving. And I think we worked very well if elected for that and other reasons. I called out my own party for things that they were doing, and they didn't like it, but it needed to be said. And these are very good, well-intentioned people, but they needed to be slapped around a little bit. And I was willing to do it. You've got to be willing to make hard decisions like that if it's going to benefit the citizens of Bristol.
Yeah, and for the final question, as voters yourselves, what would you tell the other voters out there what they should be looking for when they're considering city council candidates?
Me first?
Yeah.
Okay, well, what I would say is to echo Mr. Wynn, obviously you want to do your research on each candidate. If there are topics that are of great importance to you, you want to make sure that your candidate of choice aligns with you on those. But most importantly, I would say talk to your candidates, ask them questions, and challenge them. Because I love nothing more than talking to people. And if I don't have an answer or I don't know something, it's going to grow me as a leader to find out the answer to then give it back to that constituent. So I think just don't be shy, reach out and ask them how they feel about things, what they would do in this circumstance, how can they help you? And their answers can then dictate whether you choose to vote for them or not.
And now we have a 1.5 minute closing comment.
Oh. Do I get an answer?
Oh, yes. Sorry about that. I knew I was like,
You're probably a little nervous yourself.
no, just lost my
Right, no problem. Okay, I would tell voters to look for consistency, character, honesty, and also no conflict of interest, because you can sort of smell that when somebody is serving. It's hard to realize that if someone's just knocking on your door and you're talking to them for 2 or 3 minutes, but once you get a feeling for the way they handle themselves, it's easy to read people. So we as voters need, as D. Wayne once again suggested, dig a little deeper. Know who you're really dealing with. Is it somebody there that is trying to build their resume, or is it someone that has a true vocation for public service? Because unfortunately, the reality is not all candidates do. Believe it or not, I know that comes as a shock. But really, if we're more discerning in who's presenting themselves in front of us, you're more likely to make the right decision.
And I think those are very wise words from Mark Kelly. People over politics. That's why, despite what you fucking think, Kara, I don't have a party affiliation. I am an independent. No matter how many times you want to say that I'm something else, I'm sure the #1 Democratic troll, Joseph J. Alexander, is on it. Hi, Kara. You have no fucking life. So where does that leave us? Do I have other clips I could play here? Yeah, sure. I've got a ton, but you can view them for yourself. The live stream for that candidate forum is listed below. The articles that I've shared today, listed below. The original WTIC mayoral debate, listed below. I have nothing to hide. I have nothing to twist. This fucking city needs a fucking change. I didn't even get into all the little nitpicky stuff. Like, for instance, the lesbian-backed Led Zeppelin cover band, Les Zeppelin, very famous, at least in this area. They played the Rockwell Theater last week. The mayor shares every single event that happens at the Rockwell Theater. Didn't share that one. I wonder why. Because it's election time, and I've got to stick with my bigoted base. And that's the problem. And that's the problem that all of you bigots who are seeing this because someone sent you the link because they saw it on Facebook. Stay mad. Stay mad, motherfucker. Because you live in an echo chamber. You think that Facebook is the end-all be-all, and it's not. I am not being paid by anyone. I am not being influenced by anyone. I am here to show the truth because it needs to be shown. I live in this city. I own a home in this city. My taxes went up. If you live in Bristol and you haven't checked it out yet, taxedbyjeff.com. Link below. See how bad your taxes have increased. Because Ellen brought it up last night. Yes, there was an increase under her. 3%. 3. 1, 2, 3. The average that property taxes went up under Jeff is 27%. That's the average. Some people, it was as high as 50%. I think it was Mark Dickhouse said it best during that forum was some people, it's an additional mortgage payment come the end of the year. It's that high. Some people can't afford that. We live in a very volatile economic time. Everyone's feeling it. Unless you're a fucking 1%er, you're fucking feeling it. And Jeff don't care about you. Jeff is planning on leaving Connecticut. That is his plan. He is planning to vamoose to fucking Florida. He already sold his house. He's only running again because of his fucking ego. That's why he's like, I only have one term that's left. Because he could run for 2 more terms. He's only running for 1 more term, and he's only doing it because A, no one else in the Republican Party wants to fucking pick up the slack because none of them have any popularity. And 2, because Ellen is his opponent. And he wants to twist the knife because he beat Ellen once. But here's the problem, and I've spoken about this on here before. The reason he beat Ellen was because he ran on that QAnon anti-COVID bullshit. And he got just enough fucking tinfoil hat motherfuckers to come to the polls. And that's the problem. And that is what I put forward to all of you. Whether you fucking like me or not, if you live in the city of Bristol, you get your ass out to vote this November. Because that is the underlying problem of this city. Because our mayoral election takes place on an odd-numbered year, the voter turnout is extremely low. The highest it has been in the past 4 elections has been around 30% of the registered electorate. 30%. And most of the time it's been less. You're talking a quarter of the voters have been making it to the polls or early voting. We need that to change. And I'm not here to tell you who to vote for. But I'm telling you that the current administration has done nothing good for this city except stand on the shoulders of others, take credit for what they did. And anything bad that has happened under their watch, put the blame on the previous administration. It's been 4 fucking years. That is old and it is tired. Deny, deflect, misdirect. Blame, deflect, misdirect. That's all you fucking do. Blame, deflect, misdirect. And the taxpayers of this city are fucking tired of it. And I know the fact that by the time this goes up, it's going to be the night of the 7th, I'm hoping. So the 8th, there's another forum. And I guarantee, mark my words, the Republicans are going to use that as a gotcha moment to try to say that any Democrats that didn't show up to that, well, see, they can't show up for the real stuff, blah, blah, blah. You're holding a community forum on a fucking weekday at 1:30 in the afternoon. People have fucking jobs. This was the same problem with the first debate. You held it on a weekday at 8 a.m. People have fucking jobs. They can't come to shit like that. That's why they didn't fucking show up at the fucking library. Because it was at 6:30 p.m. Anyone who is working class could be there. I was there. The room was full. And not a single Republican in sight. Why? Because they don't give a fuck about the people of this city. They only want a position. Everyone want to be famous. Nobody want to do any of the work. They want a paycheck. And they want to say, look at me. And people like Jeff want to do a motherfucking photo op. That's all he does. You don't see it fucking ribbon cuttings. That's all he fucking knows how to do. He does not know what he is doing. And the past 4 years have said it. There's one clip from Ellen that I want to play that sums it up. I know I said I wouldn't play more clips, but this one is apropos because she said it more eloquently than I could at the time. And it really hit hard.
Necessarily have a crystal ball to foresee the future, but make an attempt to forecast how the next 2 years are significant for Bristol.
Well, they're significant for several reasons, and I'm going to start with a little bit of a warning. We have another revaluation scheduled for 2027. Some of you may have seen the notices. The assessor's office is out. They're looking at properties. They're doing inspections. But what I'm worried about is what are we doing from a financial standpoint to manage the roll-up to 2027? What if the housing market, the bottom falls out? What if you're stuck with a house that's valued up here that you're paying taxes on, but actually there's a depreciation due to market trends? What if the federal government continues to leverage resources and not send money to the states? What if we have to continue to create social safety nets for issues such as homelessness or social isolationism amongst our senior citizens, or competing projects that might have been started but now may not get finished? What if we don't have someone in charge who actually understands what a debt ratio is versus spending priorities? These are all important questions, and I've always said through my time on the council and as mayor that it's really important to have the right people in the right seats on the bus. And for the most part at City Hall, we do. There's just no driver, and the bus is heading toward them.
We have the right people on the bus. We have no driver. Just fucking, that's a mic drop right there. Because these are things that people just... The problem is, once again, getting back to the Facebook echo chamber, is it's the same handful of cronies who are all friends with each other who then try to hate bomb comment sections with the Democrats are lying. This is what really happened. Literally, as I'm recording this, as I was playing one of those video clips, I see a post come up in one of the town groups going, so why is it that the Republicans didn't show up? No one can come up with a straight story. No one. Not a single damn person. And that's the problem. And this was actually kind of fun. Someone actually answered them and said, the fact is this, they didn't want to go, and they're enjoying social media debacle instead of just showing up. If you can't make it, then reschedule. They pulled a no-show, and in response to their opposers said, but we said we couldn't. That's not a valid reason when you're in public office. They should have rescheduled. If they tried to do that, they'd have statements of that to share instead of word vomit. And that's not coming from me. That's coming from someone else. And that's the God's honest truth. Some people just, they don't fucking get it. They don't get it. But they think that if they just keep flooding social media with falsities, that the word's going to get across. But the problem is we're seeing so much of that on a federal level where people are seeing through the bullshit that they're tired of it. People are fucking tired. People are overtaxed, underpaid. Social nets are underfunded. Education is underfunded. There's so much shit that needs to be fixed. And the current administration doesn't know fuck all of what he is doing. I am going to try my damnedest to make it to that forum tomorrow. I just so happen to have a little bit of free time during the day. And I will be at the Chamber of Commerce today at the end of the month. Whether another edition of this saga comes out of that, we shall see. In the meantime, Titus is here to tell you to like and subscribe. I know a lot of you trolls are hanging out watching this. Go ahead and leave a comment. If this is your first time here, please subscribe. I promise you the next episode of Catharsis that's in the works right now will have nothing to do with politics. It might be something up your alley. Or watch some of the other stuff that Full Circle Radio Network has to offer. Wrestling content, movie content, and the like. But until then, this is Joseph J. Alexander, signing off.
It's gonna get you, gonna knock you around the head. Better get yourself together.